The lotus does not beg for attention. It blooms quietly in the muddy waters. Picture this, a flower so serene, so vibrant, yet it grows in the most unlikely place, muddy, murky water. Its beauty doesn't rely on admiration. Its bloom isn't a plea for validation. The lotus teaches us a timeless truth about resilience and self-worth, that even in adversity, we can rise and thrive when we embrace our inner strength. Now, let me ask you, have you ever felt undervalued? Have you ever found yourself pouring your energy into relationships, situations, or people who fail to see your worth? Perhaps you've tried harder, given more, or stayed silent, hoping that one day your value would be acknowledged. Yet, the harder you try, the more invisible you seem to become. It's a painful reality, isn't it? Feeling unseen, unheard, or dismissed by those you care about can cut deeply. But what if I told you that this very moment, this experience of being undervalued, holds the key to unlocking your true freedom? What would happen if you stopped seeking validation from others and turned inward instead? This is the wisdom of Zen and Buddhist philosophy. When someone no longer values you, the most powerful thing you can do is step back, detach, and reconnect with your inner self. It's not about revenge, proving your worth, or seeking explanations. It's about reclaiming your peace, honoring your self-respect, and finding freedom in detachment. In today's video, we'll embark on a journey into the heart of this transformative wisdom. We'll uncover the secrets of how detachment and self-respect can lead to profound personal growth. You'll learn how silence and space can speak louder than words, how to let go of the need for external approval, and how to embrace the peace that comes from within. But this isn't just philosophy, it's a practice. Along the way, I'll share stories of seekers who found themselves in the same place you might be now, undervalued, overlooked, and uncertain about their worth. You'll hear how they used the teachings of Zen to transform their pain into power, their rejection into resilience, and their silence into strength. And here's the truth. We all have the potential to bloom like the lotus. It's not about where you are or what surrounds you. It's about recognizing the beauty and worth that already exist within you. So, I invite you to stay with me on this journey. Together, we'll explore what it truly means to detach with grace, to reclaim our self-respect, and to live authentically. By the end of this video, you'll see that being undervalued isn't the end, it's a beginning. A chance to rediscover your worth and align your life with your true self. Let's dive in and explore how the simple act of turning inward can transform not just how others see you, but how you see yourself. Because in losing what you thought you needed, you may just find what you truly are. Undervaluation is a subtle, yet deeply impactful experience where an individual's worth is overlooked or diminished by others. But why does this happen? At its core, undervaluation often stems from factors like familiarity, ego, or ignorance. Familiarity, for instance, breeds a kind of blindness. The more we see someone's contributions day after day, the more likely we are to take them for granted. Think about the unsung heroes in our lives, parents, mentors, or even colleagues, whose quiet, consistent efforts are often dismissed simply because they're always there. Ego, on the other hand, plays a significant role in undervaluation. When someone's achievements or qualities outshine our own, we may unconsciously downplay their value to preserve our self-image. This can happen in personal relationships, workplaces, or even on a global scale. Consider Nikola Tesla, whose groundbreaking inventions and contributions to science were largely overlooked during his lifetime, partly due to rivalries and the ego-driven actions of his peers, including Thomas Edison. Tesla's story exemplifies how brilliance can be overshadowed by the refusal of others to recognize it. Ignorance, too, contributes to undervaluation. Sometimes, people simply lack the awareness or understanding to appreciate another's worth. This can happen in situations where cultural, social, or personal biases cloud judgment. Take the example of Vincent van Gogh, whose art was disregarded in his time, but is now celebrated worldwide. His contemporaries failed to see the genius in his work, blinded by conventions and prejudices of their era. The psychological impact of being undervalued cannot be understated. It often leads to feelings of invisibility, diminished self-esteem, and even mental health struggles. When someone feels ignored or dismissed, they may begin to question their worth, wondering if the issue lies with them rather than the perceptions of others. Over time, this can erode confidence and lead to patterns of self-doubt or overcompensation, as individuals seek validation in ways that may not serve their well-being. But let's turn the focus inward for a moment. Have you ever felt invisible in someone's presence? Perhaps in a meeting where your ideas were brushed aside, or in a relationship where your efforts went unacknowledged. Why do you think this happens? Reflect on whether familiarity, ego, or ignorance might have played a role. Did the person undervaluing you fail to see your worth? Or were they too caught up in their own world to notice? The next time you find yourself in this position, remember that being undervalued doesn't diminish your true worth. It simply reveals the limitations of others to see it. Just as Tesla's brilliance eventually illuminated the world and Van Gogh's art inspired generations, your value remains, whether or not it's immediately recognized. The key lies in not allowing external undervaluation to undermine the intrinsic value you hold within. Zen Philosophy offers profound insights into the nature of human suffering, particularly through the concepts of non-attachment, anatta, and impermanence, anicca. At its core, non-attachment teaches us that clinging to external validation is a root cause of suffering. When we tie our sense of self-worth to how others perceive us, whether through admiration, praise, or acknowledgement, we build a fragile foundation. This attachment creates a constant need for approval, leaving us vulnerable to the inevitable changes in relationships and perceptions, which are dictated by impermanence. Consider a modern example of impermanence. Steve Jobs, the visionary behind Apple, who was famously ousted from the company he founded. Initially, this rejection was a blow to his identity, as his work was deeply intertwined with his self-worth. Yet, Jobs embraced the teachings of impermanence, recognizing that his worth didn't depend on external validation, but on his ability to create and innovate. This understanding allowed him to return to Apple years later, stronger and more focused, leading the company to unprecedented success. Zen encapsulates this idea in the parable of the broken teacup. A Zen master once held a favorite teacup, telling his students, "This cup is already broken." When the cup eventually fell and shattered, the master showed no distress. Why? Because he had practiced non-attachment, understanding that all things, relationships, possessions, even recognition, are impermanent. By mentally accepting the eventual loss beforehand, he freed himself from suffering when it came to pass. This wisdom can be applied practically through mindfulness, which helps us identify when we're overly reliant on external validation. Start by paying attention to your thoughts and emotions during moments of disappointment or rejection. For example, if you post on social media and feel disheartened by the lack of engagement, pause and ask yourself, am I attaching my value to the reactions of others? This simple act of awareness begins to weaken the grip of attachment. Practicing mindfulness also involves grounding yourself in the present moment. When you notice a craving for approval, redirect your focus to your breath or surroundings. Over time, this practice builds resilience, enabling you to navigate the ebbs and flows of life with equanimity. An illustrative example comes from Michelle Obama, who faced intense scrutiny during her time as First Lady. She has spoken about how mindfulness and self-reflection helped her navigate public criticism without letting it define her. By focusing on her core values and purpose rather than external opinions, she cultivated a deep sense of inner peace and authenticity. Ultimately, Zen philosophy reminds us that suffering arises not from rejection or undervaluation itself, but from our attachment to it. By embracing non-attachment and impermanence, we free ourselves to live authentically, grounded in our intrinsic worth rather than in fleeting external affirmations. Like Steve Jobs rebuilding after his ousting, or Michelle Obama thriving amid scrutiny, we too can find strength and serenity in letting go. In Zen wisdom, silence is a form of strength, a deliberate and mindful choice that speaks volumes without uttering a word. The seeker's silence in the face of undervaluation demonstrates why this approach is more powerful than confrontation. Zen teaches that arguing or forcing recognition from those who dismiss your worth often feeds conflict and drains energy. Instead, stepping back creates space for clarity and self-reflection, not just for yourself, but for others as well. Silence is not about passivity. It's about deliberate withdrawal to preserve your peace and dignity. In modern life, this can mean stepping away from toxic environments, relationships, or workplaces that deplete your energy or fail to honor your contributions. For instance, think of Oprah Winfrey, who faced significant challenges early in her career. At one point, she was removed from her role as a news anchor, an experience that could have provoked anger or bitterness. Instead, Oprah chose to step back, reflect, and redirect her energy toward a path that aligned with her purpose. This withdrawal led her to create a platform where she could fully express her potential, ultimately transforming her life and impacting millions. The act of withdrawal shifts focus inward, allowing you to reclaim your power and prioritize your growth. It's akin to pruning a tree. By cutting away what no longer serves you, you enable new growth to flourish. In the seeker's case, their silence confused those who undervalued them, forcing these individuals to confront the absence of the seeker's contributions. Over time, the weight of their neglect became evident, and the seeker's value was recognized not through demands, but through the quiet void they left behind. A powerful modern example of this principle is seen in the life of Meghan Markle, Duchess of Sussex. After enduring relentless media scrutiny and a lack of support within the royal family, Meghan and her husband, Prince Harry, chose to step back from their royal roles. This decision, though controversial, was an act of self-preservation and a refusal to remain in a toxic environment. By withdrawing, they prioritized their mental health and family well-being, eventually carving out a new path that allowed them to focus on causes they are passionate about. Their silence in the face of criticism and their decision to move forward without confrontation reflect the essence of Zen wisdom. Silence and withdrawal also serve as tools for self-transformation. In the absence of external noise, you can focus on practices like mindfulness and meditation, gaining deeper insights into your true self. This inward journey fosters resilience, enabling you to re-enter the world with renewed strength and purpose. It's not about cutting ties with everything, but about creating boundaries that protect your peace and ensure your energy is spent in spaces that value you. Ultimately, the power of silence lies in its ability to shift the narrative. When you stop engaging with those who undervalue you, you force a reevaluation, not by trying to prove your worth, but by demonstrating it through your absence. Whether in the seeker's story, Oprah's journey, or Meghan Markle's transformation, silence and withdrawal are not acts of surrender, but profound statements of self-respect and empowerment. Inner resilience is the quiet strength that allows you to weather life's challenges without losing your sense of self. In Zen philosophy, this strength is cultivated through practices like meditation, self-reflection, and mindfulness. These practices create a foundation of self-awareness, enabling you to detach from external validation and anchor your worth in something unshakable, your own existence. One of the simplest yet most profound affirmations to nurture this resilience is, "I am enough." This statement, repeated during moments of self-doubt, reinforces the understanding that your value is inherent and not contingent on how others perceive you. Meditation, for example, helps you develop the ability to observe your thoughts without judgment, creating a space between stimulus and response. Journaling, another powerful tool, allows you to articulate your feelings and gain clarity about situations where you feel undervalued. By documenting your journey, you can track patterns, identify triggers, and celebrate progress, however small. Mindfulness practices keep you grounded in the present moment, preventing your mind from spiraling into narratives of unworthiness or rejection. Consider the story of Howard Schultz, the former CEO of Starbucks. Early in his career, Schultz's vision for a coffeehouse experience was met with skepticism and dismissal by many, including his own company's initial owners. Instead of succumbing to feelings of undervaluation, Schultz turned inward. Through self-reflection and unwavering belief in his vision, he built the resilience to persevere. His ability to stay true to his purpose, despite external doubts, ultimately led to the global success of Starbucks. Schultz's journey illustrates how inner strength can transform rejection into opportunity. Zen philosophy likens self-worth to a flame. Your self-worth is like a flame. It doesn't dim just because someone refuses to see its light. This metaphor reminds us that our value remains constant, regardless of external acknowledgement. The flame may flicker in the face of adversity, but it is never extinguished unless we allow it. Cultivating resilience involves protecting this inner flame, ensuring it continues to burn brightly even when others fail to appreciate its warmth. Another example comes from the life of Malala Yousafzai, the youngest Nobel Peace Prize laureate. After surviving a harrowing attack for advocating girls' education, Malala could have let the undervaluation of her efforts, rooted in ignorance and fear, diminish her spirit. Instead, she found strength through her values and her mission. Meditation, reflection, and a deep sense of purpose became the foundation of her resilience. Malala transformed adversity into a global movement, proving that the strength we build within can light the way for others. Building inner resilience is not about ignoring pain or pretending undervaluation doesn't sting. It's about learning to sit with those feelings, understand them, and rise above them. Through tools like mindfulness, affirmations, and purposeful action, you can transform rejection into growth. Whether journaling about your experiences or meditating on the affirmation, "I am enough," every step you take strengthens your ability to navigate life's challenges with grace and confidence. Just like the flame that continues to burn despite the wind, your self-worth endures, lighting the path to your highest potential. Setting boundaries is one of the most empowering practices you can adopt, but it's often misunderstood. Many people associate boundaries with being harsh or unkind, but in reality, they're essential for preserving self-respect and fostering healthy relationships. Zen philosophy teaches the importance of balance, being compassionate without sacrificing your own well-being. The key is finding a middle ground between kindness and self-respect, and this balance is critical in establishing boundaries that protect your energy without causing guilt. The first step to setting boundaries is recognizing that it's okay to say no without feeling bad. Often, people feel guilty for turning down requests from others, especially when those requests come from loved ones. However, the truth is that saying no is not a rejection of the person. It's an affirmation of your own needs. For example, Michelle Obama has spoken openly about the importance of setting boundaries in her life, particularly when balancing her career, family, and public responsibilities. She has shared how learning to say no to certain demands has allowed her to prioritize her health, family, and personal peace, without feeling like she's letting others down. In this way, she set compassionate boundaries that respected both her own needs and the needs of others. A practical tip for setting boundaries without guilt is to communicate clearly and with kindness. Instead of apologizing or explaining endlessly, simply state your limits. For example, you could say, "I'd love to help, but I need to take some time for myself today." This avoids unnecessary justification, making it clear that your decision comes from a place of self-care, not rejection. Another key is to practice what I call boundary setting with love. This involves setting limits, but doing so with a compassionate tone that shows you care about the other person's feelings. Forgiveness is also an essential part of setting boundaries. Often, people feel that in order to protect themselves, they must cut ties or be confrontational. However, Zen wisdom teaches that forgiveness and boundaries can coexist. You can forgive someone for their actions while still maintaining a boundary that protects your peace. Nelson Mandela, for instance, is a prime example of how forgiveness and boundaries can live side by side. Despite the immense suffering he endured during apartheid, Mandela didn't hold on to bitterness. Instead, he chose to forgive his oppressors and build a nation based on reconciliation. However, this forgiveness didn't mean he allowed people to continue disrespecting him. He set firm boundaries that helped build a just society. Let's expand on a relatable story of someone learning to set boundaries with loved ones. Imagine a person, let's call her Sarah, who has always been the giver in her family. She's the one who's always available to help, support, and listen to others, even at the cost of her own well-being. One day, Sarah realizes that she feels drained and unappreciated. Her family continues to lean on her without considering her own needs. Sarah loves her family deeply, but she knows she can't continue giving without replenishing her own energy. She decides to set a boundary with them, explaining that while she will always be there for them, she needs some time for herself. At first, her family is confused and resistant, but over time, they begin to respect her boundaries and understand that her love for them doesn't mean sacrificing her own needs. This story illustrates that setting boundaries is a process, especially with loved ones. It can be uncomfortable at first, but the benefits of maintaining healthy boundaries far outweigh the temporary discomfort. By setting boundaries with love and compassion, you not only protect your own well-being, but also strengthen your relationships, as they are based on mutual respect. Just as Michelle Obama, Nelson Mandela, and many others have shown, the balance between kindness and self-respect is achievable and essential for leading a fulfilled life. Compassionate boundaries are not about being harsh. They're about honoring both yourself and others in a way that fosters true connection. Detachment is often misunderstood as indifference or emotional coldness, but in Zen and Buddhist philosophy, it represents true liberation. Detachment, at its core, is the act of letting go, whether it's letting go of unhealthy attachments, the need for external validation, or even relationships that no longer serve our well-being. The freedom found in detachment is transformative because it opens up space for new opportunities, growth, and connections that align with our true self. When we let go of what is not meant for us, we make room for what is, allowing us to move forward in life with clarity and purpose. For example, Oprah Winfrey has often spoken about the power of letting go of toxic relationships and situations in her life. She attributes much of her success to the fact that she has learned to detach from people and circumstances that no longer serve her personal growth. Oprah's decision to step away from relationships that weren't nurturing her allowed her to fully embrace her own potential. By freeing herself from attachments, she has been able to build an empire based on authenticity and self-respect. Oprah's journey is a prime example of how detachment doesn't just mean walking away. It means opening up new possibilities for growth, peace, and connection. Detachment is not about rejecting people or things. It's about recognizing that your peace and happiness are not dependent on others. It's okay to love people from a distance when necessary. Loving from a distance doesn't mean abandoning or neglecting others. It means setting boundaries that protect your emotional well-being. In fact, detachment often enables us to love others more deeply because we're not weighed down by expectations or the need to control the relationship. This kind of love is unconditional and free from attachment to how the other person responds. A powerful Buddhist parable illustrates the beauty of detachment. The story is about a monk who was traveling with his master through the countryside. At one point, they came across a river where a woman was struggling to cross. The monk's master, without hesitation, picked her up and carried her across the river. Afterward, the monk, surprised by the act, asked, "Master, how could you touch that woman? She is not someone we should be involved with." The master, calmly responding, said, "I left her by the river, but you're still carrying her." This parable teaches us that attachment often lingers in our minds long after the physical act has ended. The monk's master shows that detachment is about releasing the hold that emotions and past events have on us. While the master acted in compassion, he didn't carry the burden of that action with him. The monk, however, was still caught in his judgment and attachment. By letting go of the attachment to the woman, the master found inner peace, showing us that true freedom lies in releasing our grip on things that no longer serve us. In modern life, detachment can be just as powerful. Many of us carry around emotional burdens, from past relationships to the need for approval from others. By practicing detachment, we can free ourselves from these weights and create space for new growth. It's about recognizing that we are not defined by our past attachments, and that by letting go, we make room for the life we truly desire. As we let go of the need to control or hold on to certain people or situations, we begin to experience a sense of liberation and peace that opens the door to more meaningful connections and opportunities. Detachment is not about isolation. It is about freedom and the ability to love without attachment, fostering both inner peace and the growth of authentic relationships. Valuing oneself isn't just about personal growth. It has a profound impact on the world around us. When we embrace our worth, it creates a ripple effect that influences others, whether we are aware of it or not. The famous metaphor of a pebble thrown into a pond illustrates this beautifully. When you throw a pebble into a still pond, the ripples expand outward, touching every corner of the water's surface. Similarly, when we cultivate self-worth and confidence, it extends beyond us, reaching the people we interact with, the communities we're part of, and even the broader society. The changes we make within ourselves inspire those around us to reassess their own worth and, in turn, make positive changes in their lives. A prime example of this is Michelle Obama, the former First Lady of the United States. Throughout her career, Michelle has consistently emphasized the importance of self-respect, confidence, and self-worth. Her powerful message to young people, especially women and girls, about believing in themselves has reverberated globally. By valuing herself, Michelle has influenced millions of individuals to do the same, creating a collective shift in how people approach self-esteem and personal empowerment. She has shown that the more we believe in our own worth, the more we can empower others to do the same. Her actions have demonstrated that one person's journey to self-love and respect can lead to a much larger movement for change. When we value ourselves, we are not only building our own lives, but we are also contributing to building healthier communities and relationships. It's a well-established fact that positive energy is contagious. By leading with integrity and confidence, we inspire those around us to treat themselves with the same respect and dignity. In relationships, whether personal or professional, when one person establishes strong boundaries and recognizes their worth, it sets the tone for the dynamics within the group. This principle applies across the board, from family life to business environments to global movements. If we teach those around us that their worth is inherent and valuable, we begin to create a culture of mutual respect and support. In practice, reflecting on how our actions affect others is a powerful exercise. Consider how your own behavior influences the people in your life. Are you a source of positivity and support? Or do you unknowingly perpetuate negativity and self-doubt in others? The way we treat ourselves sets the stage for how we treat others, and in turn, how they treat the world around them. Take, for example, a leader who demonstrates respect for themselves and their time, creates clear boundaries, and upholds their values. This type of behavior not only benefits that leader, but also encourages those they work with to adopt similar standards. It encourages others to step into their own self-worth, creating a ripple effect that expands across teams, families, and communities. The ripple effect of self-worth is a reminder that the way we see ourselves has far-reaching consequences. By investing in our own growth and valuing ourselves, we create a world where respect and authenticity are the norm. This ripple effect starts with us, and as it expands, it creates a foundation for healthier relationships, stronger communities, and a more positive environment overall. Living authentically and gracefully is the result of shifting from a mindset of seeking validation to one of quiet confidence. This transformation is not about loud proclamations of worth, but rather about embodying a sense of inner peace and strength that doesn't rely on the approval of others. People who value themselves carry an aura of calmness, resilience, and authenticity. They don't seek external validation because they are rooted in their own sense of self. Their confidence doesn't scream for attention, but rather flows naturally from within, much like the stillness of a calm lake reflecting the clear sky. This quiet confidence is something that inspires respect from others without needing to demand it. Take, for example, the iconic Nelson Mandela, who, after spending 27 years in prison, emerged as a leader not by boasting about his sacrifices, but by embodying a quiet, dignified strength. His resilience in the face of hardship and his ability to forgive those who oppressed him exemplify the power of living authentically and gracefully. Mandela never sought validation from others, even as he became the face of the anti-apartheid movement. His authenticity and deep inner peace were what earned him the respect of the world. He walked with grace through turbulent times, remaining focused on his principles rather than the praise or condemnation of others. A person who values themselves demonstrates resilience, not only through overcoming adversity, but also by staying true to who they are, regardless of external circumstances. This means embracing one's imperfections and using them as a foundation for growth rather than seeking perfection to earn validation. Calmness arises from this acceptance, as individuals no longer feel the need to react to every challenge with force or anger. Their sense of self is unshaken by the opinions of others, and they are guided by inner wisdom. In Zen philosophy, there is a story of a monk who was renowned for his wisdom and kindness. One day, a young man came to him with a request. The man, seeking validation for his own ideas, approached the monk with arrogance, believing his views were superior. The monk listened patiently, but didn't respond immediately. Instead, he invited the young man to take a walk with him. As they walked, they came across a beautiful river. The monk calmly pointed to the river and said, "Do you see how the water flows? It doesn't struggle or force its way through the rocks. It flows with grace, effortlessly adapting to the terrain. This is how we should approach life, without resistance, but with acceptance and inner peace." The young man was puzzled and asked, "But how do we do that when we feel threatened by others?" The monk smiled and replied, "The key is in knowing when to walk away. When the water encounters an obstacle, it doesn't fight it, it simply moves around it." Similarly, when faced with negativity or judgment, we too can choose to walk away, gracefully and without bitterness. It is not the challenge that defines us, but how we choose to respond. The monk's words stayed with the young man, and over time, he began to embody the same quiet strength and grace. He no longer sought validation from others, but instead found peace within himself. Like the monk, he learned that walking away from situations that did not honor his worth was not a sign of weakness, but of profound inner strength and wisdom. This Zen story perfectly encapsulates the essence of living authentically and gracefully. By learning to walk away when necessary and remaining true to one's values, we cultivate a quiet confidence that radiates outward. It is a confidence that does not demand validation, but instead inspires others through its calmness, resilience, and authenticity. Rejection, while often perceived as a painful setback, can actually serve as a powerful gift that redirects us toward better opportunities and personal growth. In the Zen tradition, rejection is seen not as a failure, but as a catalyst for transformation. The concept of beginner's mind, Shoshin, emphasizes approaching life with openness, curiosity, and a willingness to learn, even in the face of adversity. Rather than seeing rejection as a reflection of our inadequacy, Zen teaches us to embrace it as a valuable lesson that opens the door to new possibilities. The wisdom of beginner's mind invites us to let go of preconceived notions and allow ourselves to see each moment as a fresh opportunity to grow, free from the weight of past experiences or judgments. One practical way to reframe rejection is by reflecting on past experiences through journaling. By writing down the details of moments when we felt rejected, whether in relationships, careers, or personal endeavors, we can begin to identify patterns and lessons that were hidden within those challenges. This process not only helps us understand the deeper meaning behind the rejection, but also allows us to express our emotions and gain clarity. With time, we can shift our perspective, realizing that each rejection offers us a new perspective, a chance to adapt, and a moment to refine our approach. Meditation also plays a vital role in cultivating gratitude for challenges, including rejection. By practicing mindfulness and meditation techniques, we can quiet our minds and learn to observe our thoughts without judgment. This practice helps us detach from the emotional weight of rejection and see it for what it truly is, a stepping stone in our journey toward personal growth. With continued meditation, we can develop a sense of inner peace that allows us to embrace rejection with grace, trusting that it is leading us to something greater. Consider the story of Oprah Winfrey, one of the most successful and influential figures in the world. Early in her career, Oprah faced multiple rejections and setbacks. She was told she was unfit for television and even fired from her first job as a news anchor. Rather than allowing these rejections to define her, Oprah reframed them as opportunities for growth. She used each setback to refine her skills, improve her understanding of storytelling, and develop a deeper empathy for the human experience. Today, Oprah is a media mogul and a symbol of resilience, demonstrating how rejection can be the fuel that propels us to greatness. Rejection can also be seen as a moment of realignment, pushing us away from paths that may not be right for us and towards opportunities that align more closely with our true purpose. In many cases, we may find ourselves stuck in situations that no longer serve our best interests, and rejection serves as the nudge we need to move forward with greater clarity. When we let go of our attachment to outcomes, we make space for new experiences, relationships, and opportunities to flourish. In the end, rejection is not the end of the road, but rather an invitation to discover new directions. By adopting the mindset of a beginner and embracing challenges with curiosity, we can turn rejection into a powerful tool for growth and transformation. Just as Zen teaches us to approach each moment with openness and presence, we can approach rejection with the same attitude, trusting that it will guide us to the right path. The lotus, a symbol of purity and resilience, offers profound wisdom about personal transformation and self-worth. Growing from the depths of muddy waters, the lotus blooms toward the sunlight, embodying the journey of overcoming adversity to emerge stronger and more beautiful. This metaphor speaks to the core of personal growth. How? Just like the lotus, we too can rise from our struggles, transcending challenges and embracing the light of our potential. The muddy waters from which the lotus emerges represent the hardships and struggles that we face in life. Yet it is through these very challenges that we are shaped and refined, becoming more resilient and capable of standing tall in the face of adversity. The symbolism of the lotus reflects the nature of human existence. We are all born into imperfect circumstances, often surrounded by difficulties and obstacles. However, it is through the process of enduring these hardships, growing through them, and transforming that we can reach our fullest potential. Just as the lotus thrives in the murky waters, we too can find strength in the midst of adversity, using our challenges as opportunities for growth. In Zen philosophy, this aligns with the idea of non-attachment and impermanence, understanding that all things, even the most difficult, are temporary and have the potential to lead to greater wisdom and understanding. To live the lotus life is to actively nurture our own growth, no matter the circumstances. It involves practicing self-care and embracing our imperfections, knowing that they are part of what makes us unique and beautiful. Much like the lotus's growth process, our own personal evolution requires patience, dedication, and acceptance. We can start by recognizing that growth is not always linear. Some days we may feel like we are mired in mud, while other days we may feel closer to the light. This cyclical nature of growth is essential to living authentically. By embracing self-compassion and allowing ourselves to grow at our own pace, we can truly embody the spirit of the lotus. Additionally, focusing on small, daily practices such as mindfulness, gratitude, and reflection can help us stay rooted in our journey and remind us of the beauty in every step of the process. One actionable tip for embodying the lotus is to engage in daily mindfulness practices. By becoming more attuned to our thoughts, feelings, and actions, we can cultivate a deeper awareness of how we respond to challenges. This mindfulness allows us to approach adversity with grace, knowing that it is part of our process of transformation. Another important practice is embracing imperfections. Just as the lotus does not shy away from its roots in the mud, we too must accept that we are imperfect beings. Rather than striving for perfection, we can embrace our flaws as integral parts of who we are. Finally, nurturing growth involves taking the time for self-care, mentally, physically, and spiritually. This might involve setting aside time for reflection, practicing meditation, or engaging in activities that nourish our well-being. By doing so, we foster the inner strength and resilience needed to continue our journey toward personal enlightenment. The story of the lotus gardener perfectly illustrates the profound meaning found in each stage of the lotus's growth. One day, the gardener noticed a small bud beneath the surface of the water. He marveled at the potential within the bud, but also recognized the struggle it would face in reaching the surface. As time passed, the bud slowly began to rise through the water, facing the challenges of the murkiness and pressure. The gardener observed each stage of the flower's growth with deep reverence, appreciating the perseverance required to reach its final bloom. When the lotus finally emerged in full bloom, the gardener reflected on the journey and realized that every stage of growth, whether in the mud or reaching toward the light, had meaning. Each challenge was part of the process that led to the lotus's magnificent bloom, and each step contributed to its transformation. This story reminds us that our own journeys, with all their struggles and setbacks, are equally meaningful. Like the lotus, we are always growing, always evolving, and every stage of our journey contributes to our personal transformation. By embracing this process, we can learn to find beauty and purpose in every moment, knowing that just as the lotus emerges from the mud, we too can bloom into our fullest potential. As we wrap up today's journey, we reflect on the powerful transformation from undervaluation to self-respect. Much like the lotus, which begins its journey in the depths of muddy waters, we too face challenges that shape and refine us. Through silence, detachment, and inner growth, we learn to rise above external judgment and reconnect with our true selves. We embrace the stillness within, and in doing so, we bloom into our fullest potential, radiant with the beauty of self-respect and inner strength. In the words of Zen wisdom, a lotus blooms not in noise, but in stillness. This simple, yet profound quote reminds us that the most powerful transformation happens when we quiet the external distractions and focus inward. The journey to self-respect, like the growth of the lotus, is not always easy, but it is always worth it. Now, I invite you to reflect on the relationships where you might feel undervalued and consider how you can begin your own journey towards self-respect. What small steps can you take to honor your worth, regardless of others' opinions? Share your stories with us in the comments below. Your experiences may inspire others on their path. And don't forget to subscribe to Zen Mind Journey for more Zen-inspired content that can guide you on your journey toward peace, clarity, and self-discovery. Thank you for being part of this journey. May you continue to embrace the lotus within,